Alrighty guys, my name is Clinton Norris and I'm here with my good friend Amina. We just met a little bit ago. And we're going to wait for everybody to jump on really quick. I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, what I do, and then our approach to what we're going to be doing today. Again, I'm Clinton Norris. I work for a company called Paul Mitchell. I work for Paul Mitchell the School in San Diego, which I'm very lucky and blessed to be able to live in that city. It's my favorite city. And I'm the cutting specialist there at that school. So I lead future professionals through their first haircuts on the clinic classroom, and I also teach them a specialty class. I also have the privilege to be on the Paul Mitchell Advanced Education team as well. So I've traveled to other cities, like today in Chicago. We had the luxury of being at Paul Mitchell School Chicago, teaching the Lombard School and the Chicago School more about our Paul Mitchell cutting systems. And I was there with my good friend Skylar Marsh, who is behind the camera right now. And so he'll be manning that for the rest of the evening. And then I have lovely Amina. I'm going to turn you around actually so you can say hi to everyone, say what the front of you looks like. Hello. And she so graciously allowed us to do a bob on her today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my paneling and my sectioning. I didn't want to overdo it. I didn't want to take down too many panels or too many things. In my opinion, if I start paneling away so many different things, I start to get lost and I overcomplicate something that has the ability to have an easy structure. So looking at Amina's hair, there's a little bit of a wave and a curl pattern to it, which is great, and it kind of plays in our favor. What's great about that is that she has the ability to kind of wash and wear whatever we do. And that's going to be great for her, and her not being a hairstylist, I think that's going to be good and serve her favor. What I'm going to think about is the relationship from it's wet to when it's dry. I myself have like a curly, wavy texture, and things are going to start to spring up and kind of change a little bit. So I want to be able to give her the right length and for her to walk away feeling amazing. We talked about her limitation of length. The last time she got her haircut, it was around shoulder length. We had talked about maybe that a better idea would be to bring it up a little bit higher so she has some time with it. So before it gets to her shoulders, she doesn't have the dreaded flip. And so we talked about maybe an inch or two below her chin. It's going to be something that's slightly longer towards the front. So what I'm going to start with is the outline. I believe for Amina and myself, that's going to be the most important. So by my choices, I'm going to cut her outline first. I'm going to work up through. She has a great amount of hair. So we're going to do a little bit of layering and a little bit of a line work too, and kind of combine those together so she has some beautiful, amazing, easy to style end result. So I'm going to go and get started. How many people we got watching?
11.
11 people. Hey, 11 people. We're going to get started.
Lauren's this side.
Hey, Lauren. My lovely wife, Lauren, is home with our 2 kids. So thank you for keeping our kids alive. So we're going to start here in the back. I typically like to work from shorter to longer. There are a few examples when I would actually maybe start in the front and work shorter towards the back. If there was some limitation or compromised length in the front that I would need to protect, I might start in the front, take a different sectioning and complete those. But since, we have a little bit of freedom today, I'm actually going to start where it's the most comfortable for me, which is going to be in the back. So I'm going to comb her hair straight down from its natural fall. So I'm going to put my comb in right at her base. And I'm going to comb all the way down to where I believe we should stop. So looking here as this transfers into the front, it does have a little bit of length to it. Her shoulder is still like an inch away. So making that an inch above her shoulder is something that we talked about. It's something that she's comfortable with. So starting here at the base, I'm going to comb that down to its natural fall. And I'm actually going to press the hair in against the skin there so I can get a really strong line. And I'm going to start that there in the center. So I like the length and the way that looks. It gives me a strong, crisp line. I'm actually going to turn her a little bit. And then I'm going to follow this section angle that I decided to put in, right? So again, I'm going to comb from her base. I'm going to look at the root. And I'm going to make sure the hair isn't traveling in the right or the left direction to make sure it's going to fall down to its natural fall. Again, giving it a little bit of lower elevation by pressing that in. Comb that out of the way. And then work here behind the ear. Behind the ear is a little tricky area, and she has a little bit of a wave pattern here, so as I cut this, it's probably going to kick up and out of the way. And I'll give it a little bit of hydration as well. So like I said, we're in Chicago, and we're at my good friend Benjamin J's salon called The Hair Loft in West Loop. It's one of my favorite salons. Out of most people that I see doing salons, he's doing things right. He cares about his stylist, cares about the industry. and he really wants to make things the best that he can. My wife and I opened a little solar salon, and together we've kind of taken a little bit of his advice with products and how we run things and who we hire and our price points. So it's a cool thing, you know, to have friends like that in the industry, just to make sure that we're on the right path. It takes a village to do anything correct. So there's her baseline. So I like the way that looks, I like the length. I do like a little bit of the curl and wave pattern that she has to it. I'm gonna give that a little bit of hydration. They've allowed us to use a little bit of their Dominus products here today, which is cool. So we typically try to use anything that they have in the salon. As you'll know, we have people walking around in the background, which is totally awesome. There's like a busy day going on outside there, which is awesome to see. And now I'm gonna tilt her down. Now that I have her outline set in, I now have the ability to tilt her down to make it a little bit more comfortable for me. So I'm gonna take this slight diagonal forward section. That's gonna match my previous. It's really important for me to have everything groomed and controlled out of the way. I believe how you do anything is how you do everything. And so I want to be able to make this as smooth and clean and controlled as possible. That way I can map my way through the haircut and have the right end result that I want. Feel free, guys, too, the more people join, or if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them. There's no such thing as a dumb question, or just a shout out to say that you're here. We'd love to hear from you. So same thing. So I'm going to comb this down again to its natural fall. I want to make sure from its root that it's not traveling anywhere that I don't want it to. So my focus is actually going to be where the hair originates from, down to its cutting line. My cutting line is getting slightly longer towards the front. So some people would call that triangular. I'm going to call it getting longer towards the front, because that's what it's doing. Again, combing down from its base, making sure there's no travel to it. Following my cutting line from section number 1. And all my sections are actually going to travel down to section number 1. All right, transferring to the other side. So something I believe that I've been thinking about lately is whenever I'm teaching something like a line, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, a line is so easy and foundational. It's so simple. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. I think a lot of the times things that are the simplest, there's a lot of math that has to go into it and a lot of geometry that has to go into it to make sure that it comes out right. Just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's easy. Again, same diagonal forward section. We're getting to the top of the ear now on each side.
Got a bunch of friends saying hello from San Diego and Texas.
Oh yeah.
Katie Butler jumped on.
Hey Katie Butler. Katie Butler and I just did a hair event in San Diego where we raised some money for an amazing charity there, and super fun to see friends like that and coming out and doing hair for free and supporting charitable causes. So love that. So again, we're going to start here from the base, comb that down again to its natural fall. Look for my cutting line, make sure there's no over direction. Everything's coming down to exactly where I want it to be. Same thing here. And work that all the way to behind the ears. Same thing on the other side. So once I get here behind the ear, I'm going to take one more section and I'm going to check for balance one more time. This, in my experience, is where some people can kind of get off as far as where their trajectory is of your origination point and then where your cutting line ends. So I'm going to make sure that I check for balance. once I get through with my next section before I travel into the front. So guys, please share this video. We want everybody to be able to be a part of free education. I'm really honored, and it's an incredible privilege to be asked to do a Facebook Live for Privé. They've always supported us and been great, and they don't care what company we work for, they just want to do good education. And so I appreciate them asking me to do this. My good friend Aaron Johnson, their creative director, allowing me to do this as well. So we appreciate it. All right, so again, we're going to work here from the center.
You ever been to Barbados, Clinton?
I've never been to Barbados.
Ben Bella would like you to think that his hair from Barbados.
I would love to. If you want to pay for the flight, hotel.
Right, hook a brother up.
Bring my wife and my kids. I would love to do that. She would kill me if I went to do a haircut without her there.
She'll hear from her and say,
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to. So again, following my cutting line, following the plan that I started. Main thing too with her having a little bit of a wavier pattern to her hair, what I do need to do is to make sure that there's equal saturation and hydration in the hair. If things start to kick and turn around, it's going to get me confused on where my guide is. So maintaining a lot of moisture in the hair is key. And I think just curly hair by nature is moisture deprived. So I'm sure Amina can experience some of that, like towards the ends of her hair, the longer it gets, there might be a little bit of like dryness towards the end. So I'm just making sure that it's completely hydrated. And then now before I move into the front, I want to be able to check my balance. So right here behind the ear, I'm not too much of a close your eyes and feel guy, but at the same time, I want to be able to visually check these lengths before I move into the front. So this is where it's starting to get actually a lot longer. And then I do like to move it around a little bit just to see how the hair is reacting. I do like this amount of density that's here through the back. We're gonna take the next few sections across through the front. We'll probably bring everything down to section number 1. After that, we're gonna do a little bit of layering through the back. So now this is a point where I'm gonna cross over into the front. It's pretty detrimental as far as balance is concerned. So as I take this section down, I'll probably rehydrate everything. And so as I look through the front here, I want to make sure that I have enough density that's going to fill in for a guide for my next section. So as I comb all this forward, I might take down a little bit more through the front just to make sure that I have a strong enough guide. I think a lot of people get hung up on their section size, like everything needs to be small or everything needs to be a certain size for your sectioning, but as far as I'm concerned, I want to take the appropriate sectioning for what I'm doing. So based on the fact that it's a little bit finer as it gets towards the front hairline, I want to take a little bit larger of a section. And it all comes down to control. Like if I can control it, it's totally fine. If I know the outcome of the end result, and I can make that happen, and that's the right section size for me. So Amina, this is going to be in your face for just a second, all right? So I'm going to move around to the other side, take the same sectioning, and then again, make sure I have the ability to control that as well.
So on your sectioning, Clinton, are you super concerned that your section's matching from side to side, or are you more concerned about creating the right density from side to side?
A little bit of both. So hopefully she has the same density from side to side. If not, that's a challenge that I would look at, work on, and make sure that I would take, I think, more density, because density is going to be what matters the most. If I look at the density here, it's a lot weaker, and I'm not able to maybe set a guide for the next section, that's not going to work. So I care more about the same density on each side more than anything else. And then obviously too, these should match. And with these matching, what the benefit for me is I can visually see, at the scalp, I can see my cutting line, so I can be able to follow that very easily.
And Danielle Longson says she loves the way you explain everything so clear and easy to understand.
Thanks, Danielle. Appreciate it. We miss you. Hope you're doing good. I know her. So again, just gonna mist this down a little bit just to give it some control. I'm using this time a little bit of oil milk. So oil milk, in my experience with Daubiness, is a little bit heavier than the Day Mist. So it's going to give it a little bit more control. It's going to have a lot of hydration a little bit longer. So especially as like a cutting lotion, it allows me to keep hydration in the hair a little bit longer. All right, so again, I'm going to start in the back. And I'm going to look here. She has a little bit of a growth pattern there, but we're going to layer through that here in a second. So I want to still make sure that it's down from its natural fall. Comb that down. And work from the inside, shorter to longer.
So hopefully I'm not jumping ahead, but you just
Okay.
said you're going to layer there. So how did you make your decision on where you're going to layer versus how private the perimeter comes?
So looking at so before I moved into this section, I kind of picked up the hair, and I wanted to see how strong the density would be at the perimeter. So a lot of times, I think people connect the layer to the perimeter in a salon reality scenario. They tend to do that. I want a little bit of that to drop out so it creates some density through the length. And to me, it seemed a little bit more sustainable not to maybe purely connect it all the way down. And then too, once I cut the cutting line all the way through the front, and I connect all this down to the length, again, I'll pick it up and see what can drop out. So now I'm working through the front hairline here. Again, she has a little bit of wave pattern there. So again, I want to make sure that I make room for that. So as I'm here over top of the ear, I don't want the ear to influence the cutting line at the bottom. So as I work through the front hairline, I'm going to comb this down to, again, natural fall, focusing on the root. And then I'm going to give a little bit of tap above the ear, which is going to take any kind of tension that might be through the bottom of the comb. And I'm going to continue my cutting line all the way through the front hairline. All right? So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm then going to check for balance. And then I can just kind of go through the rest of the top, making sure that I'm working with discipline. Yeah, a lot of times, chasing the length and layering it all the way down to the perimeter sometimes can make the perimeter too weak. Especially with curly hair, I want her to have enough control that she doesn't have to overly blow dry her hair every day. But she can be able to style it with a little bit of balance and a little bit of weight to control it. And I'm going to have her tilt away from me just a little bit. Perfect. In my experience too, I get a lot of things that are kind of caught behind the ear here. So lifting all that hair up allows me to not have a little bitty tucked piece behind the ear that I'll miss and later on have to refine. Again, releasing a little bit of tension above the ear there. And connecting that to the front. So now thinking about this, once I tap above the ear, it's going to make this little piece a little longer, which is good because it's going to make room for her ear. Now too, making that space, once I blow dried, I might have to refine a little bit of that, which is absolutely okay. And then here I like the balance to the front. So I see that balance that lives here to the front hairline. So now I can actually work one side at a time. I like to get in a rhythm and a groove. I recently started an independent education company called Varsity Education with my good friend Lucas Doney. And we both have a somewhat similar approach with our dedication to discipline with hair. But some little things we do a little differently. So in my experience, I would rather cut one whole side and complete that. And then after I've completed that one side, I'll then move to the other if I especially know that I have a balance. So that works for me. But as far as Lucas does, he actually would work one section on one side, one section on the other, one on the other, where I tend to get locked into one side. I learn by repetition. I perform best by repetition. So I'm going to play that to my advantage. So again, being here on this side, I'm going to complete the left, and then I'll complete the right-hand side. And then after that, we can go through and complete the layer. So again, down to its natural fall, no overdirection, minimal amount of elevation as possible. Now, as far as tension, I'm using the tighter side of my comb for control. But what I'm noticing is as I'm using the comb through her hair, it's not stretching out anything at the base. It's not moving like her scalp around a lot. So that's good for me. So I'm going to have the consistent amount of tension all the way through the end result. And I honestly don't care what side of the comb you use. People get caught up in that. But what I care about is that you're using the same amount of tension the entire time. So if you put a great amount of tension on it, keep putting a great amount of tension. If you use a little bit the entire time. What starts to create a challenge is if you switch back and forth.
So what are some keys to keeping that cutting line the same from side to side if they're cutting it the way that you are? Working up one side, then working up the other side?
So I wouldn't do it if I wouldn't just cut one whole side and then just switch over to the other, because I have a lot of sections influencing what the perimeter or the outline looks like. So I'd make sure that I did section number 1 above the ear, section number 1 above the ear on both sides, make sure they're balanced, and then the guide is set. So I'm just following my plan. I wouldn't do one whole side and then do the whole other side, but as you notice here on the right and the left, I did one section above the ear, check for balance, and now I can just go through somewhat like autopilot. And when I say autopilot, I mean still paying attention to each section, but I'm not doing any more planning. I'm just following a disciplined line here over and over again, and then I can make decisions with the layering after that. So again, tension release, just to make sure that the tension stays consistent throughout the entire haircut. Again, consistent tension release. Nice, I like that. And then going up to where her natural part is here. I'm going to bring all this down to her natural fall. Now, I look at a lot of people in the salon reality world, if they, want to make this a very strong line, they think that if they held it in their fingers, that would help them. And the benefit of using your fingers is that you get a lot of control. You control your cutting line with your fingers, which is very easy. So there's a lot of easy mechanics that happen through that. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that are changing once you do that. So you're going to be able to give it a little bit of elevation, potentially some over direction that's going to be involved, and you might have an inconsistent result. So I love this side. So this is exactly what we planned out. Slightly getting longer towards the front. And now I'm going to commit to the other side, completing that one, and then we'll move on into the layer portion.
Danielle did say after that follow-up, you're doing great. Thanks for the free education, Clinton and Privé.
Awesome.
So make sure you share this video. If you appreciate the free education, they'll appreciate the shares. Shout out to Aaron Johnson for allowing us to do this tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Jump over your shoulder. No worries. And then again, I'm going all the way to the very front hairline here. So combing this down again to its natural fall, no over direction, kind of tapping above the ear. Just has a little bit of a tension release. And then I'm following my guide that I've already set from previous sections. So again, once I get past the parietal ridge, I'm going to start looking at everything as if, it would just like kind of spill like a waterfall over. So even though I might want to control all of this hair backwards, I still want it to fall to where it naturally would. So even though I'm going to layer this, I still want to be in good practices. I'm a creature of habit. Skylar and I were talking on the way over here. I believe in this kind of cheesy quote, but amateurs practice until they get it right, but professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. And the only way for me to be able to do a line over and over again and not get it wrong is for me to be able to practice it. So even though I'm going to cut a layer into this, I'm still using good practices of making sure I'm consistent and accurate with cutting a line.
So Shelly wants to know if you keep the same concept when doing a longer bob or a lob. No. I'm trying to figure out how to answer that. So when I think longer, I'm thinking past the shoulders. And when I get past the shoulders, there's a lot of interruption that happens before I get to the line. So Salon Reality Clinton, I would cut that in my fingers because there is going to be a lot of movement anyways. Again, good practices, Clinton. I would want to be able to, work a line just like I'm doing now, but working over the bone structure. So that's a hard question to answer. I think it's, once I get past the shoulders, I'll start controlling it in my fingers because there's gonna be a lot of movement anyways, a lot of obstructions on the way down.
So on your sectioning, on the left-hand side, because she had less hair on her natural part, your section really worked its way up, and you notice if you look at the top now, it's not necessarily pivoting, but it's getting wider to the front hairline without moving farther up the top of the head.
Yeah, because I'm still working diagonal and parallel to my plan. So the end result here, I'm making sure I'm doing that here at the base. So I have this other reference to make sure that I match, right? So as I'm working parallel, if you were to look at it, if you want to turn actually to the top of your head to the right here, it looks like a pie section, but what I'm still doing, that's still matching my cutting line here at the bottom. So my next section will do the same, next will do the same, and next will do the same. So what I'm not doing is I'm not rotating the bottom out and changing that at all. I'm actually staying pretty parallel, but once you curve over the bone structure, visually things kind of start to change. I've looked at things from afar before and thought it was a diagonal section when it was really horizontal. That's kind of where it is on the head shape. So again, I'm still giving a tension release here just to make sure no matter what, I'm protecting the perimeter hairline. I'll have you tilt away from it just a little bit. Perfect. And then I'll try to take 2 more sections and then we'll get into the layer portion.
So in the layering, you already have a pretty good idea what length you're going to keep the layering, like closer to the length of the perimeter in the back or closer to the length of the perimeter into the front?
My main goal with her layering is that it's long enough to control the curl. I don't want her curls to be up. I still want them to be down. So on a daily basis, she's shaking her head yes, but she's like, please. On a daily basis, I want her to, again, be able not to have a lot of stress about styling her hair. I want this to be somewhat wash and wear, easy, nothing she has to overly think about. So I believe a longer layer for her, when we blow dry it, it'll still be a longer layer, but when it's curly, it can kind of shrink up and she can have volume and have some fun with it. On an average, how often do you wear your hair just natural?
Probably every day except the weekends.
Okay. So weekends you'll blow dry your hair, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Unless I'm curling it, I've stopped blow drying it just because it's easier to curl.
Yeah.
It's natural underneath.
Yeah, you have like a good natural curl to it. It's good. Cool. So you're gonna have you tilt away from me just a little bit. I'm gonna bring again this down to its natural fall. Now this side is traveling further from its origin all the way down to the cutting line. So this side naturally, once I cut this and I look at the other side, it's gonna fall and appear to be slightly longer than the other side. And that's okay with me. Once we blow dry it and everything, that's time for adjustment there. So looking here at the front, this again travels all the way over to the cutting line. So once this drops, it'll have a little extra length here to the front. And a lot of people do that. I think I've worked with people, they've sent me photos where they're like, you know what? I cut a perimeter line on my friend, and then all of a sudden it was like so long on the other side and I just can't make it balance. Now if you were to take those same sections back down, it would actually line up and look balanced to it if you took the same place in the same sections. But at the same time, the hair travels from one origination spot longer, so this hair is actually longer. It tends to fall in front of the face a little bit more as well. So just rehydrating the hair just a little bit, and then we're gonna work on the layer portion. So for me, what I want to do as well is I'm going to actually change her part to a center division line. So I'm going to look at where her center is. I'm going to draw that back. Take that to the center here. I'm going to begin my layer in the back. So I'm going to have a little bit of this excess length from the other side. And what I want to do is I want to make this a little bit of a longer layer. So As I look at her crown, I'm going to take a little division line here from the high crown to behind the ear. Same thing to behind the ear on the other side. And then I'll be over here. So now that I have that paneled out there, I'm going to start here in the center, and I'm going to take a straight vertical section. This will be my guide. So section number 1 is the most important. So section number 1, as I take it out, I'm actually going to lift this up to 90 degrees from natural fall. So hair falls down straight. Once I lift it all the way straight up, it'll be 90 degrees. So where the mid-occipital bone is, I'm going to choose that length for the guide for my layer. I'm going to work that up over top of my knuckles to my second knuckle. And then I'm going to look at the bone structure again. I'm going to move around this way. It'll help you. So here I'm going to look at the bottom portion of the crown there, and I'm going to focus on the root, and I'm going to take that 90 from the root and just adjust that little top corner there. Okay, so that's going to be the first beginning of her layer. Right? So another vertical section. For section number 2 to get longer than 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to over direct section number 2 over top of section number 1. So I'm really in control of my vertical shape here with my cutting line, and what's controlling my horizontal shape is my over direction. So I care more about making this vertical shape fall into where I want to and the length that I want to. Horizontally, I'm relying on my over direction to make that longer towards the front. So now section 3 is over directing back on top of section number 2. And the way I work, using a number system helps me because it keeps me on track and it keeps me balanced. You know, if I have 10 sections on one side and 5 on the other, there's obviously going to be some over direction issues that happen. So now section number 3 is my guide, and section 4 is going to go back to section number 3. So 4 to 3, and then 5 will go back to 4.
How do you make your choice on whether you're going to the previous section or going to more of a stationary guide?
So it depends on how much growth and length that I want. So if I'm using just, you know, a number system of 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3, 5 to 4, it's going to subtly grow in length. The more over direction that I use, the longer it's going to get towards the front. So I'm really not looking for a really steep internal shape, you know, but I do want there to be a lot of growth here. So right where the bone structure changes and it starts to get really flat where the little temporal bone is here, I'm going to increase my over direction and actually bring that to a stationary guide behind the ear. So anytime that I want to preserve any length or to grow any longer in length, I'll typically make that choice there. So a little bit of subtle layering, it takes some of the weight off of the bottom. Again, if she decides to let it air dry, it's going to be easy for her. Now the other side, I'm going to do the same amount of over direction, section 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3, 5 to 4, and then everything's going to come back to section number 5. So again, here in the center, section 2 is going to go to section number 1. I'm going to increase my elevation right at the low crown to match the bone structure. Now, if I didn't lift that up and I were just to cut this flat, what I have a tendency to do, especially with a thicker hair type, is I run the risk of making a weight line. It'd be very difficult for her to blow dry. So I want to be able to remove the right amount of weight, so I took that extra step of taking that top little corner and peak off. Again, back to its previous, see a strong guide there.
So for those of us that are used to moving sides when we're cutting a layer, can you explain why you kept the same body position from side 1 to side 2?
Yeah, so just ergonomics of the way that I work. To me, it's a little easier to cut from the bottom up. And I feel like when I work this way, I have the ability to do this a lot easier. When I'm working on the other side, I feel like my body gets a little twisted. It's possible, but again, I want to do the most comfortable thing that I can, again, to make me more successful in the end result. So I can take section number 2 or 3 to 2, 4 to 3, working this way. Typically where you're standing, I would have a mirror, so I can kind of check the things that I'm working on that way to make it a little easier. But I'm working on my actual Jedi powers now, just to make sure I'm going to the previous section. So again, backwards over direction, increasingly making that longer towards the front. Find my really strong guide. Raise my elevation just slightly at the low crown to make sure that I'm kind of rounding that off vertically. And then everything behind the ear is going to come back to that stationary guide there. Whatever reaches, reaches, and what doesn't, it doesn't. So there's the entire back with the layer. Again, it's a longer layer again because she does have a curl pattern to her hair. So I want to make sure that if this gets too short, then it'll be up here and really, really, really curly. You know, so I want to make sure that it's protected and that her bob looks correct. To me, it's very difficult, I think, to have a short layer on curly hair and manage that. So now I'm going to make a little bit of a separation here at the parietal ridge. So top panel is going to go up. And for me, where the bone structure changes, I should also be doing something different as well if I want to maintain the same technique vertically and shape horizontally. So now I want to keep all this density to the front. So I'm just going to make sure I'm going to see if these sections can and will reach back to the stationary guide behind the ear. So I'm going to overdirect that backwards, checking to see what reaches and meets the guide and what doesn't. So again, bringing that back, making sure I find my guide, adding that in. Again, stationary guide. So now this is section number 8, I believe, and it's going all the way back to section number 5. Again, flat cutting line here through the back. And then I'm going to round that off towards the top. Again, section 9 is going to go all the way back. Again, flat cutting line behind the ear.
I think this is such an important step in layering this that people often forget because they just want to cut above the parietal ridge and layer that hair without layering this.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not cutting off much hair, but the connection and the transition to the front, even though it's subtle, is going to make a big impact on her daily, you know, styling. So I think that's important. People just skip it. All right. Cool. And that'll preserve all this density through the front. Again, if that starts to wave or curl, I don't want it to curl up too much. It looks pretty. I almost want to like leave it curly. I know, right? So now, again, across at the parietal ridge. Again, I'm using bone structure to make sure it's balanced for both sides. I'm going to twist and control this. I don't love doing little space buns here, but it's going to make everything clean and easy to see. So again, next vertical section here on top of the ear. I want to make sure that has that same amount of over direction. Find my strong guide. Increase the elevation here as well. That little tiny corner, I know it's small, but can and will make a difference. Benefit of a stationary guide too is that section size can grow and get a little bit denser, a little bit thicker. And to the benefit of that is, you know, instead of having one section maybe filling in the density that you have like 5 sections. So again, huge benefit to that as well. Make sure, see if any of that reaches. All right, cool. So I'm happy with those sides, and now we're gonna work on the top last, and then we will start to blow dry. So maybe we'll take a little bit of the people that are watching. How many people are watching?
35.
Hey, 35 people. So 35 people, maybe chime in and let me know if I
36.
should. Hey, 36. Welcome, you're the most important one. So maybe they can chime in and let me know if they would rather me diffuse it or blow dry it straight.
Right? Let's see those choices. Let's make Clinton style hair not straight.
Yeah, right. Now, so I'm going to over direct all this hair from the top backwards, and I'm going to utilize a cross check that I did from the previous to create my link towards the front. All right. Next section from the top of the parietal plate down to the parietal ridge.
Zachary says he really likes the number system, by the way.
Thanks, Zachary. Appreciate it.
We got to vote for diffuse.
Okay. So now I'm working palm to palm. If I were to maybe lift this up, I might remove too much weight. So I'm gonna make sure I work in my hand. It'll like decrease a little bit of the elevation as well.
Right. So there's somebody, can you explain your choice of elevation here again versus coming up?
Up again?
Yeah.
So I want to preserve all the link towards the front. So instead of taking this little bit of extra elevation that I did at the crown, I'm taking a cross check that would happen right below that bit of elevation. So if I were to cross check this through here, look at my backwards over direction, that's the guide that I'm actually using. So if I were to bring it up, I would be nervous that the front would get too short. So I'm going to utilize just the cross check or the guide that's underneath that bit of elevation to make sure. Oh,
Good catch.
thanks.
Clinton also juggles
Yeah, right. Juggle sesabons
and chainsaws.
and chainsaws.
So you're at 3 to 2 for straight versus curly.
3 is straight,
Yeah.
2 is curly.
Yeah. Trending in your direction.
Nice. Always trying to push myself. Okay, and then the last section here.
3 to 3 now. You jumped up to 80, 90 viewers.
Okay.
Thank you for those who shared.
Yeah.
Not quite sure what happened.
Yeah, that's
Digging
cool.
it.
So that leaves, if you can see, all this extra density and length to the front, but still allows us to remove weight here from the back. And most people, I mean, I would say most people, I'm gonna say all of us, have more hair in the back, less hair in the front, based on hairline, and then just natural densities that happen.
So Stephanie has a question.
Okay.
Would you cut on dry hair after you blow it out or diffuse it?
Hey Stephanie, thanks for your question. If it's diffused, I could look at a few things and see where they sit, especially if she does it on a daily basis and leaves it curly. I would kind of look at some end results there, but benefit of doing hair straight or blowing it out straight is you have an opportunity that no matter what, if it's curly or anything, you can change it. Now, the reason that I feel like I would offer that is because we obviously have time after this live video. We could do whatever we need to our hair to make it look completely functional, but purposes of the live video, we can do whatever we need to do. But yeah, I could refine hair curly a little bit. Curly hair kind of diffuses itself. If with the right elevation and the right controls, the layering should create all the texture and movement that I need.
So Corey Woods from PMTS Lombard says diffuse it.
Nice. Got some more votes.
You're like at 8 to 7. Now you diffuse over straight.
And then lastly, this section from the front. Okay, so again, everything traveled to the back, so there's a connection, but at the same time, we have a little bit of extra length towards the front to fill in some of that density. And I do like a curly. So we'll kind of do a little bit of a recap. So again, we started here in the center back. We had a triangular cutting line, shorter in the back, gaining length towards the front. Everything was brought down to section number 1. We did a little tension release over the ear just to give it a little bit of space, just in case the ear would influence the end result of the line. And then we did what I would call a triangular layer, which means the layering here internally was shorter on the back, and it gained length towards the front just by an action called over direction, which means I took a section of hair from where it naturally falls and pulled it away from where I wanted it to live, so it gained in length. Benefit for her is that the back can be a little bit curly, and then the longer length she can see in the front. It's almost like a security blanket when you kind of change your length of your hair. So I'm super happy with the length. I'm glad that she had the notion to go a little shorter than she has before. So it looks super good on there.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of the waviness to it. What are our votes at right now?
We're like 10 to 11 straight. You got some PMTS crew from the training that are all voting diffuse, but
I don't know. What do you guys think? I got some people. You can turn around and see us here. You want to turn around and say hi? Hey,
you
guys.
have some salon employees from the hair loft.
Yeah, so they're joining us tonight.
Here's
Bree did color for us tonight, so I'm really
Yes.
grateful for Bree. She actually found the model for us, so I'm really thankful to Bree. And amazing with the color, so I'm super happy. She's actually a regular guest of yours, right? So thank you for loaning me your guest. It means a lot. You know, thank you.
We got another curly. But I guess ultimately, Clinton, the end result, it means like how much refinement do you think is going to be needed? Because if you do diffuse it, it's going to limit your ability to refine certain aspects of it.
Certain aspects of it. I mean, I think that making a decision in a salon, I would want to go off of what she does normally, knowing that she does know Bree. If she needs to adjust a few things, Bree would. I'm offering you to. You know, she can make it really good because she's cut her hair before in the past and it's looked really, really good. I don't know. I mean, I think either one. I know I cut it with, detail and precision as far as I know all this hair, right? Detail and precision as far as the length went, but I know it'd come out good if she ironed it or not, but it just kind of depends on, what I want for the style. And I want her to know that diffusing has always kind of gone bad for people too, like, I ask people to diffuse their hair and they're like, no.
Right.
Because it's gone bad and they just didn't know, like, how to do it, so, yeah. I think we'll do it straight. Straight? Everybody's, like, saying yes.
Word cotton.
What is it?
I said word cotton.
So I'm going to use a little bit of cream, a little love smoother. And that's going to give me some control again for her wave and her curl. A lot of people ask, like, as far as adding product in, how do you know what to put in first, second, third? Do you, mix it all together and make, like, your own little, like, recipe of things? And so, as far as I go, if I want to get the full benefit of the product, I'll probably put it in individually. And then I typically work with a water-based product first, so I can kind of
question about your product that you applied.
We're here at the Hair Loft in Chicago, and so they use Davines products, so they allowed us to use a little bit of Davines products, and so I have a little bit of knowledge because a good amount of my friends use Davines, and so I borrowed some of their products before, so it made it kind of easy transition for me to choose.
Did you spray in the BD oil earlier?
Yeah, dating mist I put in just to kind of hydrate her hair. Fancy water is what we call it.
Fancy water. Looks
Yeah.
great.
But it's like leave-in conditioner, and it allows me as I'm working to hold more moisture in as I work. And then I did a little bit of oil milk, which gives it a lot of control because it's a little bit heavier. Love gives it control and moisture because it is a little bit of a cream. And then lastly, I would put in an oil-based product. So oil, I feel like is one of my favorites from Davines. It's going to give it shine. It's also going to give it moisture as well. And I'll put that in last. And then we'll blow dry. And then after we blow dry, we'll look if it needs more moisture. We can put like a little bit more oil in. Oil is really light, so I love that. There's a lot of oils I think now that I like. Paul Mitchell has an Alpui Wild Ginger Starting Treatment Oil. I love that one. It smells really good. It's one of my go-tos. Marula oil I like from Paul Mitchell as well. I love. Even Unite has U oil. It's really great. So we're in a world now of a lot of good oils. Yeah, we should blow dry and iron it. Looks good. I'm so excited. Okay, so now's the time when I'm going to blow dry. So I'm going to try to walk you guys through as much as I can through the blow dry. I know that sometimes blow drying is like pulling teeth. So I'm going to blow dry, try to make it as comprehensive as possible. Please ask questions as far as what I'm doing, and even questions just about me, what I'm doing, what my plans are, letting us know any questions that you have or future things that you would like to see.
Ben joined in.
Hey, Ben. So I'm going to control, one of the things with blow drying I've learned over time is to control everything down that I'm not going to be using right now. So I'm going to let this kind of dry on its own at her base. So as I go through and blow dry, there's heat from her scalp that's going to start drying her hair. So it's going to do some of the work for me, which is great. But at the same time, if it's not living smooth and flat where I want it to be blow dried, then I'm gonna have to work a little bit harder to make sure that everything can lay down without any volume in it. That's my goal with the blow dry, is just to blow dry everything smooth and flat. Again, her hair is curly, and my experience with curly hair is that this might have a tendency to flip in a way that I don't want it to. So I'm gonna try to control it as best as I can with the blow dry. And worst case scenario, I can kind of rehydrate the ends or adjust anything with the iron that I need to. So I'm gonna start blow drying. I've taken the nozzle off, and I've chosen a brush that has like a rubber base to it so I can give it a little bit of leaf and bevel. And so I'm gonna have her tilt forward and look all the way down for me. Nozzles off just to give a little bit more spread out air. And I'm gonna really work at her base and control everything low and as flat as possible. I'm moving her base and exposing it so I can add a lot of heat and a lot of air to it. And I'm gonna lift that up, heat up the base, and I'm gonna comb it right back down. I'm gonna then control the hair in the opposite direction, just again to expose the base.
So how much of the blow dry is just getting the hair dry, and how much of it's actually inspecting the haircut itself?
I think I'm like low-key inspecting the haircut more than it's like my major goal right now. Because again, regardless of what I see right now, when I go back through and I actually inspect the haircut, that's really gonna be more of what I'm looking at. Right now, I'm really just wanting to get everything really smooth, flat, and controlled, so there's no real root lift. And I'm backing the air off over here so it's actually hitting a bigger area. So it's allowing it to blow dry a little quicker. And I want less of the air to influence the hair like this. I want the brush to do the control and then the air to heat it up. So really my goal is to have no influence of the air. If I can turn that. No influence of the air and more influence of the actual brush. And that's just adding heat to it and giving it some control. Now I want to see how much moisture is still in there. So the base is pretty dry. We still have a little moisture to the ends. So while I'm here with the shorter hair, it's going to dry quicker. I'm going to go ahead and take each section, lift it up, control it around the brush, and give it as much control as I can. Again, I know that I might not be able to smooth it out as much as I can with just a brush and a blow dryer. I'm going to have to utilize a little bit of iron, which is okay with me, but at the same time, I want to get it as smooth as possible with my brush. Can you look down a little further?
He's glad you let the blow out this glue.
Awesome.
Caitlin asked the question, does this work with curly hair? I'm assuming she's talking about the haircut, not necessarily the blow dry. And Caitlin, the model's hair is naturally curly. In case you just joined us.
Yeah. So yeah, model's hair is naturally, I wouldn't even, I mean, is it curly?
Wavy?
Yeah, it's more wavy than it is curl. It's not really spiraling over itself or anything like that. So it's more wavy than anything. So what's going to be awesome for her is she's not going to have to really do much for it to look good. And again, that's what I think everybody wants and everybody's looking for, you know, is for it just to be wavy and controlled more than anything else.
You're currently at 320 viewers.
Okay, 320. So again, stretching the hair out as much as I can, heating that up and letting that sit in where its natural fall would be. And if you notice, I'm standing here where the handle is facing forward. So I've always gone through this challenge where I have a lot of the hair kicking backwards, and if anything, I want the hair to kick forwards. So one thing I've learned from my good friend James Mold, which he's been one of my major influences as far as hair cutting, but also for blow drying. Scooping up the hair, all that to correct any kind of backwards curve that it might have. So that sets me up. Again, it might not be exactly perfect, and there's some things that I can adjust with the iron, but I at least want to get that curving forward. And it's very shiny, which is great. Color makes it really, really shiny. That breeded a little bit earlier, and then also the way I'm blow drying, and then the products as well. So now I switched, and I've actually, just real quick, I switched now, so my handle now is facing forward here, so I switched hands. So now when I lift this up again, it's starting to curve forward already, so I can be in charge of that now instead of later.
Right, in case you guys missed it, we lost connection there for a second. Clinton was explaining his choice of body position in the blow dry to control the movement of the hair. So a quick recap, if you look at where his hand is positioned, is to pull that handle forward, so we can pull that hair forward and not let the hair kick back.
Yeah.
So again, if you guys like what you see, please share with your friends, let everybody know. We're getting to the most exciting part, and that's the refinement and finish work. Cleaning up the outlines, make sure we're not.
So here, see how the hair's kind of kicking back already? That's where this comes into play, being really important to scoop the hair up and let that be controlled by the brush. So it starts to kick forward a little bit when I'm adding heat.
So how important is it for you to work, I see you working without clips. What does that give you the ability to do?
Just to work quicker. I could stop, pause, put that out of the way, because I do have to rearrange it a little bit, but I would rather just kind of push that out of the way and get it controlled for time's sake. Again, I don't really love blow drying. I didn't become a hairdresser to blow dry hair like some people do, but this is more of a means to an end to me to make sure it looks good and that I have enough control over the shape of the end result to make sure it's what I like. It's good. Still a little bit of moisture. But again, as you can see, it already corrected the curve forward. And so now an important thing that we forget is the hair is hot right now. So what it needs to do to kind of reform and kind of stay is for it to cool down. So as I touch the hair, it's still somewhat warm, so I still want it to cool down in a state where I can just do minimal ironing. I'm gonna now continue to work up the bone structure. Again, continue to do a little bit of a wrap drying method. Just to, again, wrap around the bone structure to give it a little bit of a natural bend to it. And as much control as I possibly can with her hair being a little bit wavy. So we'll see kind of what this front does as we start to pre-dry. Keep it very low and curving around with the head shape. Starts to build a little bit of a bevel through the mid-lengths before we get to the ends here. And again, I'm focusing my hair here just at the base. Even though the brush is going all the way through the hair, I'm focusing here at the base to give it a little bit of control.
So for those that just joined us, explain your brush choice with this.
So,
I'm going to use a traditional brush to show.
Yeah, so it's a 9-row vest brush. And Vest has been one of my best friends as far as blow drying. It's curvy. It has a rubber base to it, so it gives a lot of tension and curve. It has little knobs at the end, so when I pre-dry, it's not aggressive on her scalp. And it allows me to do two things simultaneously. I can pre-dry the hair, and I can leaf and double it. So it's like a 2-in-1. I got it from Hairbrained, obviously. They've been amazing supporters of me throughout my entire career. And so I want to support those that support me. And so I've gotten mainly most of my tools from Hairbrain. So again, really low, really flat. She'll probably never do this with her hair again. But this allows me to see it really pure and how I cut it in its wet relationship. Now I'm gonna change hands and I'm gonna blow dry the other way. So I'm gonna kind of peel back some of these like sections. And I'm gonna start blow drying it back the other way. This allows me to make sure 100% of the moisture is out. By exposing the roof, I can then direct it and make sure it's still low and it's still flat.
So does this go back to switching hands again to keep that direction of the hair going the same way?
Yeah, I want to give it movement. So if I expose the base of the hair and I blow dry it this way, expose the base and blow dry it the other way, it's going to allow it to have a direction forward and backwards. So hopefully when she walks, her hair swings, and it's not too stuck. I'm notorious for being like a over product abuser, so I tend to put a lot of product in people's hair. But at the same time, it controls it. It gives me the amount of control that I want, enough hydration to where the ends aren't too frazzled. And it's great for photos.
There it is. There's the answer. It's great for photos.
Great for photos.
So would you say you go equal movements goes back and forward? Agree with that?
Yeah, hopefully. But I want to be able to see, like now, once I comb it straight, once I brush it straight down, I want to be able to see it to where it lives. I still need to go through the ends and make sure that they have enough control. So right now, I think a lot of people would stop and just start ironing. But I want to be able to control these ends here to make sure they're not too expanded. And I'll do the same thing to the other side as well.
Right. So what clues you into that needs more work in the blow dry and the finish?
It's just like a little puffy to me. I want it to be blow dried to where it looks like if it was wet.
Right.
You know, so the same amount of control, the same amount of attention to detail that went into the haircut. So I'm gonna try to finish this side, and then the other side has a lot more hair to it. So that way we can kind of move through.
She's got gorgeous hair.
Yeah.
Good model. Rena, the model's like, thanks guys. Like, I'm your new best friend. So if you're going back over those sections, I know you're really focused on the mid shaft and the end to get it controlled. How do you know when you're done?
Moisture's out. You know, even though the moisture's out, heating up hair does change, you know, the formation of the hair, but at the same time, I feel like if there's like a time issue and, you know, we're wanting this to be as straight as possible, like the hair's dry right now, so I would kind of go back through, kind of make those adjustments. So I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. So you're gonna pre-dry is gonna expose the base. I'm gonna wrap it low and around the bone structure this way.
Nikki Ramos just joined us.
Hey, Nikki Ramos.
Nikki, hope you had a great time at the gathering.
Yeah.
I heard great things about your classroom. So because she has more hair on this side due to the natural part, are you going to wrap it even more across the top of her head or still keeping it low?
Still low because I don't want to increase any volume up here. I still want this to be like a low, flat kind of wrap. Or what we would call directional. But yeah, still low, not creating any volume.
If you guys are just joining us, Clinton is finishing the blow dry on his bob. A little bit of minimal layering, and we are live from the hair loft here in Chicago. So let's do.
So again, this hair that gets caught around the ear, I'm always cautious of that. There's been so many times where I've had this little piece, you know, not as smooth as everything else. So I really want to make sure I'm working every single piece of hair the way I want it to be. And then front hairline tends to either be stubborn or the hair is so fine that it's difficult to control. So again, I want to still make sure that I'm giving a lot of tension around the face, that those hairs are stretched, wrapped around the head shape, and they're able to cool and be controlled around our bone structure. I think the key to making all of this smooth around the front hairline is just making sure we get to it before it's naturally dry. So that way I can give it the direction that I want it to have instead of, you know, me just having to deal with what it's naturally doing. Again, exposing that, influencing with the air, and then letting that cool down allows that to be a lot smoother.
Mike is joined. Mikey B.
Hey, Mikey B. Mike Guerrero is one of the guys that we just did the event with in San Diego. Kingly Group is a phenomenal education company, and I absolutely think you guys should support them. San Diego now as well.
Says, what's up, brother?
Hey. Now wrapping all this hair forward, removing most of the moisture through wrapping.
So I think that's key. If you couldn't hear what Clinton just said, he's removing most of the moisture through the wrapping, not necessarily the movement of the blow dryer. I think a lot of times we spend so much time moving the blow dryer that it's not drying the hair, it's not removing the moisture because it's not concentrated. So good, nice little details about the finish work here and the importance of removing and wrapping out that moisture.
So again, controlling everything where I want it to live, and then now going through and smoothing out from the mid-length to the end. So I think no matter how much time I spend on the haircut, if I don't do the same amount of attention to detail through blow drying, it's going to distort what I've done already. So I'm not going to have the ability to make good decisions when it's in its dry relationship. So again, I want to be able to control and smooth out everything as much as possible.
Aaron joined. Welcome to the party, pal. We got 670 people watching right now, folks.
Thank you guys for tuning in and sharing. It means the world. We're about to get into the fun part of refinement. This is very exciting. It's a little warm in Chicago. And I chose to wear a beanie, which is weird.
Somebody asked if you're wearing a uniform earlier.
What kind of uniform? What is that supposed to mean?
This is a Clinton Norris uniform.
Yeah. Yes, I am wearing uniform. All black.
Even before.
That was from Luis Rodriguez down in Clearwater, Florida. He said what's up.
How's it going?
I think he was really complimenting you on your.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. ASOS, before I get everything. Hey, Bree, can you do me a favor? Can you turn that smoothing iron on?
It's already on.
Nice. Can you make sure it's at 400? Again, making sure this is all stretched, placed with the curvature that I want. The handle is facing forward, so it is giving me a little bit of kick and movement to the front. And so this side, the reason I started on the weaker side was because it gave this heavier side the ability and the time to kind of dry on its own. Being that I had it, groomed and combed into a place where I wanted to dry itself, I allowed it to do that. There are some things here at the ends that I'm trying to adjust now with the blow dry and heat. And then whatever I can't get with that, I will then go through with the iron to make sure it's all smooth.
You want to know what kind of blow dryer you're using?
This blow dryer is GHD. Actually, my good friend Mike Varela, that was just on with the Kingly Hair Group, he suggested this blow dryer. My wife found 2 of these on sale for really cheap, and so we both bought them. And so we use them in the salon, and I've loved it. Carry it with me here and there. It's really hot. There's a lot of airflow to it, which is great. So it's been good to me. It's really small. It's good to travel with.
Joni would like to recap on the brush again, just real fast.
So this is a Vess brush. It's a ceramic C2000. The company is Vess, V-E-S-S. I got it from Hairbrain. It's the only brush I need. I actually don't really carry any round brushes or anything more than that. I have a few flat brushes that I've gotten at hair shows here and there. But this is the brush pretty much I'm using for pre-drying and for giving it a little bit of movement and bevel through the edges. But mostly this is a brush that I use for everybody and everything. It's a one-stop shop. I feel like it lasts forever. I think it's like a modern twist on a Denman brush. It doesn't have the huge rubber base to it. Spread out a little bit more. It picks up hair really well is what my favorite feature. I think it's because of little knobs on the end. Allows it to grip hair a little bit better than most brushes do. Now some of this isn't going to smooth out exactly the way I want with the brush and blow dryer. But with the addition of an iron, I'll be able to adjust some of those ends. Right to the bottom of there.
Somebody named Lauren.
Hey, Lauren. That sounds hot. All right, so last few sections just to get as much of the excess moisture as I can.
heating up the mid lengths and the ends to kind of restructure them, to give them as much of a bevel. And then I'll go through and with the addition of an iron, adjust some of those pieces.
Susan wants to know why not use a concentrator on the dryer.
Yeah. So a concentrator, I typically only use that if I'm round brushing. And with a concentrator, what you're doing is you're organizing all the air into one small place. So if I do that, I'm only able to blow dry just one piece of it. Now with the concentrator off, if you were to put like this x-ray to see where the heat was going, it would be very expanded, right? And so I don't want the air to influence one direct area and blow the hair around. I want to take the concentrator off to let the heat just heat up around the hair, almost like a hooded dryer would. And then my brush can do all the direction, and it gets me for a sleeker, smoother end result. If I use a brush and a concentrator, it tends to blow dry all the ends and move all the ends around before I can even control them with a blow dryer. So I typically take the concentrator off to do that. So here, there's not much influence of the air to the hair, but if I had a concentrator on it, it would blow all the hair everywhere. I could back it off further, but I wouldn't get the impact of the heat. So I choose to take the concentrator off. I'm gonna switch. And now just kind of go through the top ends.
You're walking, Susan?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Susan.
Getting lots of thumbs up currently.
Love thumbs up.
Liking what you're seeing. Darlene Johnson says awesome hair. He was like, I'm gonna do this every week. This feels great.
Yeah, right? So again, just polishing out as much as I can with the brush blow dryer. Last little piece. And then we'll iron it and then we'll refine it. So now, I'm going to go through and smooth it out a bit. So I'm going to start from the front and I'm going to take a diagonal back section. So the reason that I'm doing that, it's going to follow the natural curvature of the head a little bit easier. I want to organize everything so as I take my sections it'll be a lot easier. So diagonal back section. I tend to use these clips right here. They're really, really flat. There's a lot of clips that have too much of a bevel to it. And I feel like I've done all this work to make not have a bend, and then when I put the clip in there, it bends the hair. So I typically use this clip. They're incredibly expensive and they're really rare and hard to find. I got this one at a boutique called Target. And so actually they're really easy to find. Target, like Walmart carries them, Rite Aid, I feel like I got these from Rite Aid. And the brand is called Goody. I think you guys are all familiar with Goody. They make like the hair ties that people put their hair up with. Okay, so smoothing iron, I have a smaller smoothing iron. This Paul Mitchell Pro Tool smoothing iron is my absolute favorite that I've ever used in my entire life. And the reason that I love it is because it's small, the plates have a lot of slip to them, and it allows me to get things very smooth and straight. It's also used as a styling iron as well. So people, like, it heats up like 360, so it gets hot on the outside. So if you wanted to do curls, that would be the smoothing iron to do it with. You know, and I've learned to enjoy some of the process. And I said earlier I didn't love blow drying, and I don't, but I've enjoyed the process to what it's going to create for me as an end result. So just taking the same dedication to discipline with each section, and how it's smoothed out and where it lives and how it lives has been a benefit, you know, and I feel like just falling in love with the process of organizing the hair to live as smooth and controlled as possible is going to allow me to make the best end result. I don't want to cheat any section. Again, this could be a time and a place where I kind of rush through things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this haircut for I don't know how long. But this is where people, I think, can get impatient and they rush this process and they're not able to finish as an end result very well. So again, I want to make sure that I'm taking the time that I can make a really good decision after I smooth everything out. So tilt the weight down and away from me. Perfect. And then I'm slowing down. I would rather do less passes with the iron than 100 little tiny quick motions. So I'm actually taking this really slow and smooth.
Giving some thumbs up. She's got very nice hair.
Yeah.
Very sleek. It's looking like glass from right here.
Love it. Yeah, so her hair smooths out very easy. And she has like the ideal like hair type and texture where it's like medium to, you know, like medium density, medium wave pattern. It's very easy to make straight. I'm sure if we were to diffuse it, it would be pretty easy to encourage a little bit of curl. You know what I mean? So she's got a great head of hair, which is easy to work with. It makes this look easy, which is awesome. So again, working this slight diagonal back. And I don't need to take the iron all the way to the base. I think that's what a lot of us do, or a lot of us have tended to do, is we take everything all the way to the base. But I've already spent a lot of time and effort, you know, blow drying that to make it as smooth as possible. I don't actually need to crank that all the way up against the base. And again, I don't want to run my fingers through it and start playing with her hair. I want to make sure that it sits and it cools down. So my friend Ben said that it takes about 3 minutes for a head of hair to cool down once you iron it. So 3 minutes doesn't seem long, but it is when you're like looking at hair and you're wanting to touch it. So letting that cool down and kind of reform and get really, really cooled down is my goal. So I don't want to overly adjust the hair. I want to let that sit, cool down where it should naturally be. Same diagonal back sections. And here's what I'm looking for to adjust. See all the inconsistency and the kick and the flip to it. That's where her hair dried before I could get to the ends. And I'm not twisting her hair up into a little like space bun either, because again, that's going to start creating a little bit of like inconsistency. And then I'll have to do more work with the iron to get that out.
Compliment there. It says beautiful line.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, I'm really working the mid-lengths and the ends. I'm not worried too much about the base. I've already spent that time controlling it. A few more sections on this side, and then we'll move to the other, which is a little bit lighter, so it should be a little faster.
So for those of you that there are just some people that just joined, just give us a quick little recap.
As far as the haircut goes?
Yeah.
I did a triangular line. So in my terminology, triangular means that it's shorter in the back and it's gaining length to a point in the front there. So I cut short in the back, longer to the front, and I cut everything down with no elevation, no over direction, consistent tension, just to make it an equaling result. And then after that, I layered it a little bit because she does have pretty wavy hair. So on its own, when she maybe doesn't blow dry it to this intensity or irons it like this, it's going to be pretty consistent, and it's going to allow it to curl up, but not curl up too much. If I did a short layer, I'm scared it would kind of shrink and be too expanded. So I'm actually just going through and smoothing this out after I did the layer. With the layering, I did over direct everything backwards, again, so it would fill in some of the density towards the front. And here, just taking horizontal, diagonal back sections, I blow dried it. And with these little sections, I'm going through and polishing out the ends. Little bits of the hair that I couldn't control with the brush and blow dryer, but dry before I got there. I'm going to move on to the other side. And again, we are at the Hair Loft in Chicago. Again, it's one of my favorite salons. Some of my favorite people work here. And a good friend, Benjamin J. Has made very good decisions with the salon and with the staff. And our friend Christian works here as well. And so, phenomenal guy, love him. Comes back tomorrow. We're gonna hang out. And again, so for you, those of you guys that are just joining, I'm putting just as much detail and time into the blow dry and the smoothing work because I want the end result to reflect the same amount of intensity that I did with the haircut. So a few more sections here. Again, working horizontal diagonal back. Comb the hair still low. Clipping with a really flat clip against the head shape. And they're a little bit curved, so they're meant to sit where the head shape curves. So I'm gonna use that. I typically stay away from like the alligator clips. I feel like a lot of the alligator type of clips, especially when the hair's wet, it's kind of hung up. And so it's not my favorite thing to use the little alligator clips. So typically a flat clip is my choice. And then look down and then away from me, perfect. Now as I work up, same thing, nothing's gonna change. Just horizontal, diagonal back.
Got some comments. Nikki says, so sleek, awesome Clinton. Clap the hands, raise the roof. Whatever you want to call that one.
Yeah, right.
Right?
One of my, Derek Piekarski, he works for, a good friend of ours works for Wella, with the little praise hands is what they're called. He was like, what is this emoji with these hands throwing up blue corn chips? I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what it looks like.
That sounds like Derek.
Yeah, it is awesome.
I'll laugh about that all night.
Little blue corn chips. I love it so much, I'm throwing up blue corn chips. Again, so I'm combing that down so it sits, so it cools down in the place that I want it to. Clip and isolate. I'm putting as much attention into blow dry and preparation phase so I can make really good decisions once I refine the length and the layer portion.
Brooke says she loves it.
Thanks, Brooke.
Very talented.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all you guys taking the time out of your night to, spend it here with us. It does mean a lot. You know, you guys could be doing other things, and you guys have decided to be here with us, so it means a lot. You know, and it means a lot every time that you share it and invite friends to be part of it. It's really
Love
cool.
the cut from Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole.
The love comes pouring in because they start to see the finished result.
That's great. Thank you guys so much.
I'm not quite sure why somebody just put an emoji up
So there are trolls.
there. Right? Haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate, yeah.
Right? You know what my favorite troll is?
Branch.
I love Branch.
Love
right?
Branch. Princess Poppy.
Uh-huh. Princess Poppy's alright. But I love Branch.
There's a one.
I also like Biggie. Biggie's pretty cool too.
And I think too, you know, there's a lot of hairdressers that when they watch things like this, I believe that they're used to one way of doing things. You know, they blast dry it with their hands, and they turn their irons up to 450 degrees, smash through it, you know. And then at the end, you know, it doesn't look that good. It's not sustainable. And what I care about is Amina, when if I happen to be in Chicago again, and I saw Amina and she was like walking around and her hair looked amazing still, that's where I know, that's a compliment for me. Is like, okay, when she showered, she used her own products at home, and she did her own hair, it still looks good like 6 weeks later. You know, that's a compliment, and there's no way that I can do that if I just blast through it. You know, I hurry up with the blow dry or the iron work. There's no way to make that look good. You know, I don't know if I said this before, but successful people do the things that unsuccessful people just don't want to do. You know, so if I want to be successful in the end result, I'm going to have to be the one that takes the extra time, you know, to go through and make sure everything sits and lives where I want it to sit and live, and then make those decisions. But again, I don't want to be one of the people that just like hurries through things. Because there's probably a fast way to do things, and there's the right way to do things, right?
Right?
Okay, fun stuff now. So again, here's like the end result as far as haircut goes. Obviously a little bit extra length through this side just because of where the part is. So we're gonna work on the lighter side first, and then we're gonna work through the heavier side. So I'm gonna raise her up just a little bit.
Is there a reason why you choose to work the lighter side versus the heavier side first?
No, not necessarily. I just feel like this side's gonna need less refinement. So I wanna get this side set. And then once that's set, then I'm gonna go through and I'll make a decision. So I'll maybe tilt forward and stay right there for me, and then I'll move you here in a second. So right through here, I feel like it's slightly heavier than the left side. So I'm gonna adjust this side first. There's a few ways that I can adjust this. One is with the broad side of my blade here, which is called club cutting or blunt cutting. And I'm gonna really kind of refine and establish the strength of the outline that way. And then I'm gonna have her tilt away from me, perfect. And combing that down to where its natural fall is. This little bow of weight here is where I did a little bit of a tension release. So now that the hair is in its natural state, I'm gonna go through.
Can you give us a little explanation of club cutting again?
It's just blunt with the side of my blade. You know, so I'm going through and you see this little edge of weight right there. I'm actually cutting that just with the broad side of the blade. You know, another way to do that would be just going through and chipping, which I'm about to do as well. So look up for me a little bit and then just tilt straight to the side.
So how would you choose club cutting over just doing all chipping if you're going to go back and do it later?
I wouldn't do all chipping. This is just really setting in the preliminary strength of the length of the haircut. So I went through and I did that already, but this allows me to see where a little bow of weight was around the ear, and I can straighten that up. But this isn't meeting the standard of what I'm holding myself to. So hair that's dry tends to be a lot stronger. So when I close my scissor, it's gonna push out of the scissor no matter what. So now once I turn my scissor over, I have the ability to adjust little, you know, pieces of weight, little pieces of length, and it not actually push too far out of where I want it to live.
Nicole, we were at the Hair Loft in Chicago, the West Loop location.
Okay, and now that I've blunt cut the back, I'm gonna have her tilt forward again. And then I'm gonna go through and just adjust some of the line that I've created. And I typically tilt a guest or a model forward, just so I'm able to expose some of the bottom hairline and the hair that lives right at the bottom. And the surface can kind of tilt away. My friend Lucas and I talk about we could refine a haircut for like 2 days. You know, so I know you guys don't have 2 days.
Right.
And Amina doesn't have 2 days either. But I could sit here and comb here, see where it falls, adjust it, comb here, see where it falls, and adjust it. You know, but I want to do this till I feel pretty happy that no matter what she does with her hair, that if it gets pushed into one area or another, that it's going to fall into place and it's still going to look good.
The scissors that Clinton's using are actually Mizutani.
Mm-hmm.
They are customized scissors for his education brand called Varsity Education.
Yeah.
I'll have him check these DMs when he gets off, and he can message you about the exact details.
Yeah, I'm also an ambassador for Mizutani scissors, and so I like to hook people up, you know, so if you guys have questions about scissors, I'm all about hooking people up. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that side. I'm then gonna adjust her now to the other. I'm gonna have her tilt forward and a little bit away from me. And this is where there was a little bit of extra weight through this side, so I have the ability now to adjust that for balance.
So I think what you're working on right now is the thing that most hairdressers struggle with, and you're so kind and vulnerable at the moment to put your refinement skills on.
Yeah.
So give us some a little advice about what it takes to become this, not steady, but this confident with your refinement.
At first, I don't think I was as confident. You know, I had people, again, like, you know, I try to put myself in a room of people that are better than I am, you know, and those people have helped me look at things a certain way and see like, okay, well, if that doesn't look good, why does it not look good? And does it need a little bit of adjustment or does it need a lot of adjustment? And so those things have allowed me to try, you know, maybe not doing the best job at the beginning and allowing myself to fail. And then once I've failed, I've taken something from that and adjusted it the next time, and taken something from that and adjusted it the next time. And so I've just been very lucky to have a lot of opportunities to fail. And so it kind of put me in a position to where it gave me a little bit more confidence, you know, through time. And, you know, people like Amina letting me cut her hair and, you know, being brave and saying yes and whatever you want to do, I trust you, make it look good. You know, that's what's helped me, you know, models saying yes and, you know, her giving me the confidence of like, I trust you, you know, whatever you cut, whatever length you cut, I know it's going to look good. You know, that's helped me, you know, with a little bit of my confidence as well. And I don't know if she knows that she has a role in that, but she does. So really appreciate it. So here's the back of the line there. I feel pretty confident with the way the line looks. I had a little tad bit of an adjustment just through the bottom length here. And again, this is the work that people, again, aren't willing to do. They're not willing to sit here and go through and test their patience. And
Right, I was just going to compliment you on that. Instead of rushing through and like just being okay with the hairline, you're letting the hairline create the exact look that you want to see or what you had envisioned.
yeah.
And I feel like, you know, this is where all hairdressers can grow as far as like their eye for detail and their level of taste.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one thing that sets you apart is your taste level and the way you can execute the haircut.
That means a lot. Yeah, thank you. You know, I think the people that I look up to, you know, have really set the bar. So, you know, at one point I want to make my, you know, mentors, my peers. Still a task, still working on that. Okay, so I'm going to start taking the layering here vertically. And then I'm going to look at where I've created my strong line. So you'll see two things. One, you'll see the layer that I created in the back, and then the roundness that I created, and then you'll see the front here. So there's like two kind of little disconnects of layering. So this is where things start to blend and connect together. First, I'm going to work on this bottom length, and I'm going to point cut. So making the hair completely smooth and straight allows me to see where the weight lives in the ends of the haircut. So over top of my fingers, I'm controlling the hair to the same elevation that I cut it, and connect. And so making these little adjustments here is gonna, if she walks around, this is the Windy City, right? Don't they call Chicago the Windy City? No?
She's windy.
I feel like it's windy, right?
I
Chicago's
called
windy.
it Windy City. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All the hot air blowing around the city for the
Yeah.
politicians.
Oh.
But actually, it's windy.
By the lake.
Yeah, it's kind of windy. So if she walks around in the Windy City and her hair blows around, I want her to be able to, if it shifts or moves around, I want it to integrate into wherever it falls. So by creating a little bit of space to the interior, that allows it to have forgiveness, so where it shifts, that'll look like it all still falls into place. So I'm continuing to work through with the same elevation and over direction that I did for the original shape of the haircut.
So, what is the choice of like you're coming in parallel to your section that you're holding out of the head.
Right.
So what is the benefit of that versus just picking it up and just point cutting and blasting out the hole?
Well, then if I wanted just to blast out the shape of it, I wouldn't have taken all the time in the beginning to create that shape, right? So I'm really just adjusting it. I don't want to destroy the shape. I want to just take what I've already done and just adjust how strong the bottom is. So here's the top that had a little bit lower elevation, and then here's the bottom that had like the 90 degrees of elevation from the back. So this top portion up here is really the disconnect from the top.
So she had a lower density of hair. Would you necessarily need to do this?
No, actually I wouldn't, and I might actually, if she had even a little bit of a lower density, I might not even layer it. I might just create a pure line, and then have her wear like a strong line, But maybe soften the ends a little bit. But for this, since she has a pretty good amount of hair, I want it to be layered, and then I want each individual piece to lay anywhere that it needs to lay. So I want you guys to look, I'm going to show you this, Skylar, real quick. So if you look at the portion that I've point cut and the portion that I haven't, you guys see a difference?
Yep.
Right? So this is a little bit smoother. It's able to move, integrate, where this is a little bit stronger and a little blockier. So that just softened the original shape that I created. So I'm going to work to the other side and do the same exact thing. Now if I get greedy and I take a huge fat section, I'm going to start taking big chunks out of the hair instead of taking the same sections that I took, creating some space. Again, cutting completely parallel to the hair so I don't take a massive amount of a corner of the shape out or anything like that. A lot of people ask me, when do you know when to stop? Because this is really fun. I think people just want to keep point cutting. They're like, this is great.
Right.
But for me, I want to take the same amount of weight from the very top through to the bottom. So I'm looking at the amount of space that I'm taking out, and if one place is a little heavier, I can kind of focus on that until it has the same amount of weight removal from top to bottom.
So sort of how you feel about the bottom of the hair and the nape, like when you're working through the perimeter, like you feel like you just refine that all the time.
Yeah, I could continue to do that over and over again.
Right, just when you think you're done refining, you've only just begun.
Yeah, someone told me how do you know when you're done refining? It's like when you feel like you're done, do it for 10 more minutes. So I feel like I've taken that into consideration. I feel like I'm done, I got 10 more minutes. Okay, and then I'm gonna continue to work through the sides. Again, same elevation, same over direction to create the basic shape of the haircut.
So for anybody who's just joined us, this is Clinton Norris. This approach to a bob with a bit of layering through the top just to soften the bottom line due to her density of hair.
Yeah, she has a really, strong wave pattern, and so this longer layer will allow her to have the room for it to shrink up a little bit and for it to change and her to wear it multiple ways.
So,
I'm not really into currently just doing things that are, incredibly graphic or abstract right now. I think for a bit of time I was, but I think what's very difficult is just to create a really strong triangular line and the appropriate suitable layer for somebody. It's more difficult, so that's where I'm at right now. I'm not saying that I won't change my mind.
right.
Next week I might do something really graphic, I don't know.
So you just said it's a long layer, but some people might be looking at this saying, what in the world, how's that long?
Yeah.
So what do you mean by it's a long layer?
Just in relationship to the length itself. I'm not talking about in relationship to her shoulders or the floor, but if you look at where the layering is, it's only like maybe 2 inches from the perimeter. So to me, in relationship to her perimeter, it's a longer layer. So if this were down to the middle of her back, the layering would be here. So my terminology, I'm using it based on the relationship to the length.
And so this little weight removal just from the ends of the hair has a major impact on how the hair sits together and how it looks cohesively as a whole. Letting some of this perimeter drop because I know it's not going to reach to my section because of when I had previously cut, like all of that didn't reach. So there's no need to take that perimeter guide up into the layer. It's not going to reach anyways. It's going to drop out on its own. And my last section here, I'm going to pull that back. Sliding around on the hair on the floor. All right. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy. So let's kind of give a little overview really quick before we close things up. So I'm gonna dust you off really quick.
Don't mind the paintbrush.
Yeah, look like a paintbrush. But so just for all of you guys that joined a little bit after we created the shape, her hair was a little bit longer. We took a significant amount of length off. We did something between chin and shoulder. There's a little bit of a triangular balance, shorter in the back, longer in the front. And then we elevated it to remove a little bit of weight because she has a medium amount of density. And then we went back through, point cut a little bit of it, and gave it a little bit of space so no matter where the hair lives, it can integrate into itself and not look out of place. If she wears it wavy, she also still has the ability for it to live anywhere it should live and still look good. So I appreciate you guys. Again, I'm Clinton Norris. You can follow me on Instagram where I'm the most active at Clinton Cuts Hair. It's pretty easy to remember. So follow me at Clinton Cuts Hair. Also Varsity Hair Education. We have some classes coming up in July which are hands-on. Come with a scissor, come with some tools for you guys to be able to be a precision hair cutter and have everything you need when you leave. So again, thank you so much Privé, Aaron Johnson, and Skylar Marsh, and Bree, and Amina for being here and letting me do what we did today. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.